Hello, I'm Matthew Buzzy from PC Mag, and I'm here with Jordan Miner, and we're here with an exciting new drop, the Steam Deck, Valve's long-awaited, hotly anticipated, and eyebrow-raising, I think it's fair to say, sort of handheld PC for playing your favorite Steam games. And Jordan's been using it for a bit now. I'm sure, has plenty of impressions and thoughts on it. So Jordan, overview, like kind of what is it, and do you like it? We'll get into the details, but that's the question people want to know. Is this thing good?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at it. It came in this nice little carrying case. And I'll just kind of walk you through my first impressions of holding it and picking it up. And I'm like, this is big, but it's not that big necessarily. It's, I'll get this out of the way. There's gonna be a lot of comparisons to the Nintendo Switch with this thing. It's a powerful handheld, and
just look at it.
Just look at it. Exactly. Yeah, you play games that you maybe would expect to play in a home setting on the go. That's a big part of the pitch. And I love the Nintendo Switch. I played it for, I don't even know, thousands and thousands of hours over the past 5 years. I really enjoy playing substantial games in a handheld format. So like I'm used to holding that thing for a long time. And so picking this up, I'm like, this is fine. I think I said, wow, this is viable. And
what people want to hear.
Viable. Yeah. And part of the benefit of making it so big, especially these grips here, is that it kind of evenly distributes the weight. So it feels like a lot lighter than you maybe expect considering how big it is.
I think the main takeaway, I mean, you touched on this obviously, and it's viable, is like the initial impression is that, like, oh, that thing's pretty big when they first showed it off. I think people were concerned that it wouldn't be that comfortable to hold. It's a big screen, it's wide, it's chunky, slightly bigger Switch, I guess. And
yeah, I mean, I got a Switch OLED right here. I got a Steam Deck right here. I gotta fit them both in a frame.
You can see why people maybe thought it was chunky. It's big. It's definitely, those grips are big. But it's good to hear. It's not too heavy, and it looks like it's sculpted more like you were saying the other day, that like the grips, the Horia grips you have for the Switch gives
yes,
sort of a
I have those here too. I have more props. They sell these big grips for the Switch. You can get the Hori split pad.
Like clearly those were made to be more comfortable to use on the Switch. So if the Steam Deck kind of looks like that, then it's probably trending up the right path.
Yeah, when you add them both, they're even more kind of comparable here.
Wow. Yeah, they look just like one another.
And in terms of just kind of feel, I think the Steam Deck pieces are way more premium. It's not on this level quite, but like it was reminding me of like the Xbox Elite controllers, just how like the sticks feel and the buttons and whatnot. So
not cheap, nice. Cheaper than most gaming laptops for sure, but not a cheap item. So it's good. It's good that the quality is there. How's the screen? Speaking of the quality and.
So it's a 720p screen. It's IPS. It's fine. But going back to the Switch OLED has really spoiled me on what a portable screen can look like. Shout out to all these Vita maniacs who've been banging that drum since 2011. But OLED's really nice. I mean, as we've talked about.
Yeah. It's hard to go back from OLED.
Yeah. So even though these games are running, and we'll get into that, even though these games are running a lot better than kind of most Switch games, they look a little duller on this screen.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's fine.
It's good. It's serviceable. It's not bad. Quality is good. Okay, so speaking of running games, after it's comfortable, it's how does it run games? I think is the next most important question to answer. Obviously, there are a range of different games where you get very different answers, whether it's like a low-grade esports title that doesn't require that much demand, like MOBAs, you set those to low settings, you don't need the high visual fidelity. Things like Fortnite, Apex, those kind of scale depending on what settings you're using. But then there's big open world games and things that probably are more difficult to run on a handheld device. So what kind of games have you played and how have your experiences been so far?
So yeah, this is definitely a big question. It's been a little bit less consistent than I would have expected, which is kind of the trade-off of the amount of freedom they give you. So they've done a really good job. They've rolled out this whole deck verified program where you can, go check your library and see like, hey, these are the games that if it gets a green check, it's just good to go. You say it runs great. Nothing, you don't have to change anything with the controllers or nothing else. If it gets like a yellow, it's playable. You may need to like use an on-screen keyboard or a mouse, or there might be some kind of less significant kind of graphical issues, but it's playable, and everyone kind of has their own definition of playable. And then there's also just this kind of whole swath of games that are just not tested at all. So they're like, try your luck, but we can't guarantee anything.
Yeah.
And then some stuff they just said to not at all. So they've done a good job sort of kind of giving you some guidelines. Like when you go to the store, it funnels you right into those great on deck games.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that though, it's not quite as consistent as I may have expected.
Even like the verified games, it sounded like even when they were talking about this system that like, yes, feature set wise, it might fall into one or other categories, but it seemed to me that like even within those tiers, there's different gradations. It's kind of a gray area of like how well those things will run, even if they're verified. But part of that's just also that can happen on a laptop. Games are optimized differently for hardware, and they're just, yes, all the features and the specs could be built to run on the Steam Deck, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that the specs are it's well optimized for the specs, or it's just like, oh, this is an open world game. Yes, it's made to run as well as possible on the Steam Deck, but that means frame drops anyway because of what the hardware is limited by. Right. So what kind of games have you played, and like what have you found?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's very much a PC gaming thing, and yeah, like just because it's like some of the performance issues don't like scale in a way that makes sense necessarily. Like I was playing Sonic Generations, which is from 2011. That was like a 360 game, and it's fine, it looks good, but like when you go fast as Sonic, sometimes the performance chugs, and like I doubt that that's a game that's too powerful for this thing. It just feels unoptimized. Same with, and that's a game that was verified. And then Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, that's a very good looking game. When you're in that opening hospital section that they used to try to trick people into thinking it wasn't a Metal Gear game, I think it looks great. It looks gorgeous. It looks like I remember playing it on the Xbox One. But when you get into the open world section, which is the actual like meat of the game, the frame rate took a hit until I lowered some of the settings, and that was also verified. So like once I lowered the settings, it was okay, but I just made me wonder like why they went with those default settings that were clearly sort of beyond its reach.
Demanding. Yeah. Interesting.
But then you have something like Death Stranding, which was Kojima's follow-up game, which is a way newer game.
It should be newer, and it is better looking than Metal Gear, and it is harder to run in theory.
Right, but it runs better. And maybe that's on a different engine. Maybe it's because it's a newer thing.
It's no new. As you said, this is a PC gaming thing. It's no new. It's not news that some games are optimized better, and we've seen great leaps in performance when the developers patch the game just purely for optimization, purely for performance. But that usually applies across like all, if not most, like PCs you would then play it on. Whereas this, if one of those games runs fine on a laptop and then just not on this, it's a little concerning that you have to wonder if devs are going to have to like issue Steam Deck specific patches to make games, run better. Like, oh, we released an update to optimize this for Steam Deck. I don't think that's going to happen for a lot of like games that have been out for a long time already. Maybe games that are live updated or new are going to be like, and we optimized for Steam Deck. But games that are like over 5 years old or 5 years old, like I don't know if they're going to come back and be like, and now it runs better on Steam Deck. So maybe Valve can do something about that, with either firmware updates or Steam updates. But yeah, it's a little bit interesting. It's like good news, bad news that it can run some of those open world. And
it gets a lot for free. Like I wonder, I'm not a developer, but I wonder how much work that would even be. Because it feels like it gets it a lot of the way there just through brute force. So like, I'm not a developer, but I'm just thinking like maybe like they just go in and change, like maybe there's not even that much they need to do. Right. Obviously we just have to tweak this and then like it's great. Like, right. Yeah. I'm not a developer, but like, it gets it a lot.
That stuff is easy. Yeah.
It gets it a lot of the way there just through like brute force, which is really impressive.
It's like kind of good that it can run some of those. It's not a blanket, like the specs aren't good enough to run, Death Stranding. Like, it's a bridge too far. Very fit.
Reminds me of some of these, like when they talk about kind of porting these like other big games to Switch of like, oh yeah, when we just kind of put it in there, like we just dragged and dropped. It was like unplayable. We had a lot of stuff to it. But like on a console, you just need to do that. Whereas on the PC, there's not necessarily those expectations always.
Yeah, these sort of bespoke optimizations are not new. So we'll Jordan's only had this for a few days, so we will run like full benchmark tests and things and kind of give you some more concrete frame rates for what kinds of games consistently do or don't work well, which hopefully there is a consistent sort of thread, because it gets hard to recommend to people if your main takeaway is that the performance is like a game by game conclusion, like it's totally across, like it's scattershot, then it's hard to be like, go if you play like only single player like AAA games, those don't run well, or those do run well, because it sounds like it sounds like it's just game by game, case by case.
It's also like happening like as we speak. Like it just came out. Like devs are like still like Elden Ring of all games like just became verified. And that game has like really crazy spec requirements.
Yeah, it could take a month. It could be like some things won't get updated. It could be like, oh yeah, as our game launches, here's a Steam Deck patch. Like, so we'll see what happens. I do expect more and more games to update because the library of games that works based on a couple of our libraries, we're talking about this. Like there's a pretty decent number of games that are either verified or in the next tier down that are like playable. So I don't think it's going to be some crazy thing where only like, a dozen games are optimized for Steam Deck. It's not like that. It's just a matter of how well they'll run exactly.
And even that might be a bit misleading because a lot of stuff is just untested. But like I tested Resident Evil Village, which is a 2021 game that is untested, and it was great. It was, granted, it was in a lot of enclosed spaces, which are kind of easy to render, but like it was great.
But like I think that's the kind of game that people like wouldn't assume would really run on this thing.
Yeah.
At all. I think simpler like strategy games or things like that, and there's the touch pads, which we can talk about too, the little touch sensors that kind of mimic a cursor, like a mouse cursor, because traditionally games like strategy titles and anything like that doesn't really, they don't really work too well on controller. A lot of devs kind of gave up. There's been a couple games that have kind of found a solution, but those touch pads anyway should sort of bridge that gap.
And they give you a lot of flexibility in terms of like, here's our recommended controller layout, but if you want to go in and remap everything or kind of download community, recommended controls, all that's very simple. But then like Batman Arkham Asylum from 2009 just crashes like.
Yeah, so a little frustrating, perhaps. Hopefully, as we said,
But to your point about like you were saying, you don't think that people expect a game like RE Village to run on this necessarily. So I agree with that somewhat, but to me, part of the appeal of this thing is also the idea of like a lot of the games I tested were very explicitly games that are not on the Switch, like games that seem too powerful to run on the Switch, because it's like, I don't know, I wouldn't want to play like Hades on this necessarily if I already have a Switch. Like games that I think that could just run well already. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because then you're just choosing to run it on a low spec PC. Yeah. Instead of like this was made to run fine on Switch. Period. Like Hades will always work the same, optimized on Switch. That's it.
Yeah, and not to discount the appeal of like a lot of people have a lot of Steam games already, and so to have it on this already, like that's great. But like I think also part of the appeal is the notion that you will get games on this that you won't necessarily get on other handhelds, which is at this point only one other handheld. So. Yeah. I think to add on to the Resident Evil statement, I think those are the games maybe people didn't think would work, but are concerned that like, can I play like full games if I don't have a gaming PC, or if I want to buy this instead of a gaming laptop to play things portably? And like the answer doesn't seem to be like, oh no, that's way too demanding, which kind of fits with what we found with even integrated graphics on laptops that aren't gaming laptops. It's just the graphics that are built into the processor. I did a bunch of tests a few months back on all types of those systems, and it's like actually some of these AAA games, like it's not great maybe, and you run them on the lower settings, but they run like 30 frames, like around there, depending on the laptop. These things kind of become playable. So I think the baseline of just performance for the average components these days have come up so far. And this is obviously specifically built to be a gaming system. So between developers optimizing for low specs and Valve working to make this thing work for this exact purpose, it sounds like a pretty wide swath of things are I mean, a lot of stuff is targeting still like PS4 and Xbox One, and those are like decade old. Even at the time, those weren't necessarily like the highest end things. So
right, I know handheld and console graphics have always been their own weird thing. They're not necessarily keeping pace with what's going on PC. So seems like Valve, obviously in the PC space, they know their stuff. In this topic, took kind of the best of both options and combined it into something that seems to work. So we'll test it. As I said, Jordan will get even more time with it.
It definitely works. It
seems like the baseline is like it runs games. It runs most games, and it runs games that maybe you thought it might struggle with, at least on reasonable settings. The resolution, I'm sure, helps because it's running with a lower resolution. And it sounds pretty functional.
All the Steam stuff, like their interface they've come up with it feels very natural in this kind of smaller format. You still get a lot of, your Steam community stuff. You can really open it up. Like you can just go into a straight up desktop and there's like a Firefox web browser if you want. That's what I was going to ask. And it's all just Linux. So
yeah, I was going to ask how the non-gaming, non-Steam specific stuff is, because that was a lot of what got people excited. It was like, oh, I can do X, Y, and Z on this because it's technically a PC. Is that stuff accessible? Or is it like a black box kind of?
It's kind of in between. I think it's smart that they don't let you just kind of randomly flip a switch that breaks everything. Of like, oh, let me try a different compatibility layer.
Oops.
So that's obfuscated just enough. But you can get to it, just settings and whatnot. So
okay.
But it's also very easy to ignore. So.
Right. Some people might have, a lot of people buying this might have no interest in that. It's just like, I want to play my Steam library. I want to load up the games I own already and play it. But the customization is part of the appeal, I think. So it sounds pretty good. Which storage capacity version did you get?
They sent us the 256 gig one, which fills up pretty fast.
The base model has that lower. It's not the SSD. It's like the flash storage, I believe. So
it's like 64.
The storage is slower.
Just go buy a micro SD card.
Right. Worth noting. So yeah, my personal order is still off in the distance somewhere. But we are interested in testing this more and playing more types of games.
Here, come get it. Come take it.
I'll come right over and just
yell out your window. Yell out your window.
Toss it over. Yeah. We'll get.
That's the thing too. Like if I drop this, obviously that'd be a bad day. But like I wouldn't feel like it's the end of the world necessarily. Like it's pretty sturdy also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks hefty. Looks well made. Wow. Yeah, so we'll test more games on it. We'll bring you more impressions and some harder numbers as well. All these sort of experiential, and this is a weird device because it's like these people want to just know if it works, and then there's also like the PC enthusiasts who want to know like what exactly they can run and what kind of frames they can look for. So we'll try to do both and bring you the best of both coverage types. Thank you, Jordan, for your impressions, and check back for review and for impressions as well as hard benchmark numbers. Thank you so much.
All sorts of coverage, all sorts of Steam Deck coverage here at PC Mag.
Yes, we run the gamut. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next time.